Tuesday. Welcome to the Mortgage Coach Tuesday interview. My name's Dave Savage. I'm always, one of my favorite things to do in the week is interview amazing mortgage professionals. 34% of the top loan officers in America are on the Mortgage Coach team, and we've got some amazing leaders on today's call. I want to remind everybody these calls are recorded. There's a playlist for our Tuesday interviews. There's a playlist for our all-time favorites, which, Tim, you are part of. I've been doing a lot of these Skype interviews, and I interviewed Tim yesterday in our real-world scripts. Make sure you check some of those out. I kind of know the direction of where today's call is going. We're going to talk a lot about using Mortgage Coach, and being a mortgage coach to add value to agents. Want to recommend everybody checks out the 5 strategies to maximize your realtor referrals. It's going to be a good homework assignment from today. Also, Tim was gracious enough last minute to make time. We recorded a 7-minute and 38-second video on how to be valuable to realtors. So, Tim Braheem, thanks for making time yesterday to do that call, brother.
You're welcome.
You know, it ended up like we were like, what are we going to talk about? And I thought you just crushed it. So, for any manager that's listening to this call, what Tim said, how he said it in that 7 minutes and 38 seconds was super valuable. And we're gonna go a little deeper on some of the concepts. Before we get into the big interview, I do want to drive everybody to watch a 8-minute and 34-second show that I did with Craig Sewing last week. So this was a live interview. Craig has an incredible show called The American Dream. Craig has gone from mortgage professional to new media celebrity in the San Diego market. He's got a daily show. That's his studio that he's built. It's an amazing success story of how a mortgage professional has leveraged media to build their profile. And Craig gave me an interesting opportunity where I was interviewed as an expert on behalf of the mortgage industry. So this was a different conversation. He recorded it in Skype. Anybody that watches this 8-minute and 34-second video, you know, some takeaways for you. One, my shooting was Skype, so it's kind of amazing at how pro 2 people could be on Skype and the type of media production that could be created and the way video can be leveraged. And then I would also say to the Mortgage Coach community, you know, I talked a little bit about something I've talked about a lot, which is the dual market opportunity, the fact that there are a lot of families, you know, that are in the, call it the high end of the low end, which is a complete seller's market. You know, they're competing for, you know, 5, 10, you know, offers on a home. But the high end, not so much. So someone, you know, in theory, and it's actually, we're seeing it happen, can sell their home in a seller's market and they could buy their home in a buyer's market. So I talked about that in a little more detail. Check that out. I did put a link to it in our chat. But again, the reason I put it there, it's a great share to realtors and buyers around what it means to be a mortgage coach. But I think it's equally important to see what can be done with Skype and what can be done from a new media perspective in terms of telling stories, explaining strategies, being an authoritative expert in your market. You don't need CNBC, you don't need the big networks to just make a lot of impact and provide a lot of leadership. So again, today we're going to talk about a lot of different things. Everybody on this call has a few things in common. You all want to be teachers. You all want to be leaders to both home buyers and realtors. So I have 2 amazing guests, Mr. Tim Braheem. Tim, welcome to the call, brother.
Good morning, and thanks for having me back, Dave.
Yeah, thanks for always coming in. Also, we have an incredible loan officer. I'm going to let Tim provide a little more framing on Caleb. I think what everybody on this call needs to know is Caleb has created thousands of total cost analysis. You know, right now he's at well, as of a few days or probably a week ago, he was at 1,912. But that doesn't even include you know, a previous account that he has. So we're talking about a guy that has created a lot of total cost analysis, has delivered the Mortgage Coach conversation to thousands of families, hundreds of agents. Caleb, welcome to the call, brother.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, no, we're excited to get into it. So Tim, I'm going to have you kick it off. Obviously, you know, you're a coach and mentor. You're Caleb's coach and mentor. I do want to provide a little bit of topic leadership, and then I'm going to hand it to you, Tim, to drive that. When I was doing prep for this call, I was asking a lot of mortgage coach members, hey, we're going to talk about scripts. We're going to have Tim Braheem, the master of scripts, and what do you want to talk about? And a lot of folks said, well, we want to know, how the perfect loan process has changed. We may or may not have time to get into that in detail. That call gets watched, or that call that we did years ago gets watched over 1,500 times a year. Tim, just heads up. It was watched over 1,600 times last year. If you have not watched this 26-minute and 55-second video on Tim's perfect loan process from back when, check it out. But Tim, right now I know you coach a lot of top performing mortgage coaches and top loan officers, and no one knows Caleb better than you do. So why don't you tee up Caleb, start the conversation, and let's see what kind of scripts we can pull out of it and what kind of ideas we can document.
Well, I certainly hope that Priscilla, his wife, knows him better than I do, but I know him pretty well. Caleb and I met each other about 4 years ago, I guess it's been, and he went through the Leadership 360 program. He was in our second group and graduated from that after a year and has been in our master's program ever since inception. And our master's program is a pretty dynamic group of some really, really spectacular individuals that happen to also be fantastic loan originators. And we were just together as a group in Austin, Texas for 5 days last week at our most recent retreat. I suppose, Caleb, you did about 16 to 18 units a month 4 years ago, and now you're in the mid 30s to low 40s on a consistent basis of fundings, right?
That's correct.
And gosh, from a coach's perspective, I never even really thought of how I would describe Caleb, but I can take a real easy shot at it. He is easily one of the most enjoyable people that I've ever coached in many ways, but in particular that he just takes action and is really, really focused and keeps his eye on the objective. He's not easily distracted, not easily seduced into doing a bunch of things that are out of his wheelhouse. And really, it's just, as a coach, it's a joy to coach somebody who you give concepts to, and he just turns around and runs with them. And by our next coaching call, they're already implemented. So implementation, I think, is an extreme strong suit. And then the other thing is, I just think that Caleb's just a really smart guy. I mean, background as a CPA originally, back about a decade ago, and really uses his strategic analytical mind very effectively. He's somebody, Dave, who I think does an extremely effective job of not only taking a step back from the business to assess and analyze it, which is critically important, right? Like, there's not enough originators in the industry that really work on their business. And I think that's one of the beauties of the program that we do, is it gives you that opportunity a couple of times a year to step back from it as a group and look at, strategically how you're going to take things to the next level. And I've seen him go to different plateaus and continue to increase and evolve his business as a result of him being very strategic in doing so. Incredibly well scripted, incredibly analytical in assessing and evaluating where it is that he has challenges and then how we can overcome them. And then a terrific systems guy. So the perfect loan process is something that there's a couple of guys in our community, Craig Strant, Caleb LeGrand, to name two, who have really, really successfully implemented the perfect loan process and had tremendous results as a result of it, and then put their own spin and flavor on it, which has been the fun thing for me. So when you ask how has it evolved, well, the original rendition, was mine, of course, and then as I have built this community of originators that are in our coaching program, and they have then test driven the car and put their own spin on things. It hasn't changed architecturally that radically, but there's a lot of bells and whistles that people like Caleb and Craig have put on it that have just up-leveled it and made it all that much better. Jim Bakhtiar being another guy who has done some tremendous work with his milestone gift program and things like that. So it's been really fun to see these guys and ladies implement their version of it and have tremendous success. So yeah, that's a little background on Caleb, and I think that we could dive in, to Caleb's PLP a little bit and what his results have been, as you know, and what his impressions are as to what it's done for him. If you'd like, Dave, if that's an appropriate launching point.
Yeah, I think it's a great launching point. I do, at some point, whether you do it early on, you know, you use the acronym PLP. I do think, Caleb, whether you describe it or Tim does, you know, what is a perfect loan process? How do you document it? But I'll let you figure out how to ask that question, Tim, and when to ask that question. I just make sure I want to unpack that for some folks on today's call.
How do you document it? Is that your question, Dave?
Yeah, you know, I mean, how? Yeah,
Sure.
I get that question. I mean, how are you guys documenting your perfect loan process?
Yeah, okay, so I'll let Caleb answer in a second, but I'll just say to everybody that you can go to www.performance-experts.com and then go to resources. And then right there is the perfect loan process for you to download. And you're welcome to just download it and have it's documented for you, and it's done, I think, in an intelligent way. The way it's laid out, Julie Wykes, my partner, did a really terrific job of reformatting my original rendition. And by the way, that's updated every year, because every February we have a team productivity and customer service workshop in Southern California where our family of originators. Thanks for pulling that up, Dave. That's pretty slick that you're showing them where that is. Under education.
Where is it on here? I want to make sure.
Under education, right there.
Educational tools.
Yeah, should be under that.
Boom.
Right there.
There it is, everybody.
You can download it. So we have this team productivity and customer service workshop every year in February in Southern California, where our family of originators that are in the Leadership 360 family send their transaction coordinators, processors, and personal assistants to us. And last year, we facilitated over 100 processors and transaction coordinators through this workshop. And we every year update the perfect loan process, because there's always industry changes, right? And then there's new ideas and new experiences that people are having as a result of successfully implementing it. And so just FYI that this version is the latest version from February, and it continues to evolve. But with that said, Caleb, why don't you talk a little bit about how you went about implementing it? Because I think that that's really the magic, is taking a huge process like this, and how did you integrate it into your business, and what's been the results that you've experienced?
So I think the biggest thing is to understand that when you look at it initially with that Excel spreadsheet, it's a lot. I mean, so it can be very overwhelming when you first pull it up or start walking through it and go, oh my goodness, I'm never going to be able to fully implement this. So my process has been evolving really over the last 5 or 6 years. This harkens back to the loan toolbox days is when I was first introduced to it, and taking that and just trying to implement it in bite-sized pieces. I think the thing that you've got to look at from an originator standpoint is understand that it's never going to be done. And just like you'd already kind of mentioned, Tim, it's constantly evolving. You have to adapt to market changes. You'll find other ideas from studying other top producers, what they're doing, and it may just be one small thing that you go, wow, that's a really great idea, and you want to pull that into your process and then implement it and adapt it and change it. But I would say just start somewhere with it, because if you don't have a system for, I don't really think of it as a system for selling as much as I think it is a system of educating and then providing a consistent experience across multiple transactions, then you're going to just be running around helter-skelter, and that inconsistency is what will create noise in the market and not allow you to achieve the peak ability of your production. So for myself, my experience with it is the better we've gotten at evolving and canonizing and being consistent with that experience for clients and referral partners, the better we've seen business come in. I mean, it's really become quite magnetic. It really is the marketing that we really focus on in providing that experience, the same consistent outcome. Partners and closing attorneys, because we're an attorney state, not a title company state, know exactly what to expect. You get that familiarity of this is where we're at, this is where we're going, and this is where we're going to end up. And that's just really to help grow the business tenfold each year.
I want to, if I can jump in real quick and comment on something you said, because I think you just hit upon something critically important. And I know that when we were talking yesterday, we kind of were in unanimous, you and I, Caleb, in agreement on this. That Dave, I was telling Caleb that a long time ago when I first was doing the Loan Toolbox website, I had told my development team that I thought that the perfect loan process actually belonged in the marketing category of Loan Toolbox, and everybody was like confused by that because it's like, you know, this is a system of service, and I'm like, yeah, but I mean, and they won out, but Caleb, I know, agrees with this, that if you're implementing a system of serving your customer that is consistent, repetitive, and by design and on purpose, like with clear intention as to what the objective is behind this, every step, what are we intending to accomplish, it becomes your marketing. It really is marketing. It's like you don't really need to do much else in the way of marketing if you're implementing a system like this. And you look at a guy like Bakhtiar, who I just mentioned, some of the stuff that Jimbo sends out, and I know Caleb was pretty impressed with some of the stuff that he saw.
I'm totally feeling it.
Yeah, I mean, Caleb's going to swipe and adapt some of these things. I mean, the things that he does every step of the way during the process blow people's mind and create, as Brent Hicks refers to them, as disciples. And that's the objective of this, is that every person that experiences doing a loan with you, whether it be a listing agent, a buyer's agent, an attorney on the closing, you know, an accountant, and certainly the client, how do we create a disciple? Because if you create a disciple, as Brent talks about it, with your system, that's all the marketing you ever need to do, because now you've got 5 people in that case who are running out there talking about you, and that word of mouth spreads like wildfire. And I think, Caleb, what you've experienced is the same thing that I experienced, which is you implement this and you put your head down and you trust it and you create a repetitive process that creates efficiency. And the rest kind of takes care of itself. And all of a sudden you wake up one day and you're like, holy crap, like the phone's ringing off the hook here. And it's coming from all kinds of places because you've done the right thing consistently on each and every loan and have put all these disciples out into the field that become your outside sales force. And I think that's what you've been experiencing. Would that be accurate?
That would be accurate. And, you know, the goal is to each time do better on this transaction than you did on the last transaction. Each day try to do better than you did the day before, and then each year try to do better than you did the year before, knowing that it's an incremental process. So I would couch it with saying, when you start off with it, understand it's not something that you're going to go put in place and then all of a sudden it's going to magically rain loans the very next day. It is a longer payoff, but it is such a long tail in the payoff. It's just really neat how it's kind of exponentially grown and compounding on itself to, if you're constantly in there focusing on, okay, what did we, I mean, for us now, to some degree, it's like, how can we shave 5 minutes off each loan file? So that way we can get through it just that much a little bit quicker. What can we do to better anticipate issues that are challenges that have come up in a transaction, to better put either pieces in place or address that question earlier in the transaction? The goal always trying to answer the question of what's next and anticipate our clients and referral partners' needs so that they don't feel the need to wonder what's going on. Because if you look at all the studies and all the feedback over the years from people in terms of what clients really want from a transaction, lack of communication and transparency and clarity always rank at the top, you know, even above interest rate, fees, and everything else. So that's one of the things we've always tried to really build in very strongly into our process, is to over communicate, provide that transparency, and set those clear expectations of where we're going and what's next. And it doesn't really have to be any more complicated than that.
And in terms of, you know, Dave, the question about, like, my sense is that underneath the question that was posed by one of the listeners is a deeper question, which is like, how do I kind of tackle this beast? Like, what's the first step in me implementing something like this? You know, that's really the reason that we created the 3-day workshop that we do for our clients, because we realize that it is a fairly difficult thing to embark upon. Caleb actually did it on his own, just like I did. Most of the originators in the L360 family have sent their teams to us for that purpose. And then Craig Strent actually teaches the same workshop that we do company-wide at Apex Home Loans in the Washington, D.C. area. But the reality of it is this, is that if you're going to implement something like this, you need to get your entire team on board with it. Change is never enjoyable for anyone. What you have to do is you have to make the fear of complacency larger than the fear of change. So I really want you to take that in for a second. So if I come to my team and I go, look, we're going to implement this new process, they're going to be like, no, we're not. I mean, they're going to back up and they're going to stiff arm me and they're like, what we're doing right now is just fine. So what we do in our workshop is we first start by getting them to see what the existing scenario is costing them and the pain that they're experiencing from being inefficient, the pain that they're experiencing from not getting the number of referrals that are potential on every loan because they're not doing a great job of servicing the client, to get them to really see the pain that they're experiencing as a team when people are pissed off and they're interrupting their day and filling up their inbox with questions that should have been answered well in advance of the person even having the opportunity to think of the question. And after that pain is amplified, then the team is much more willing to embrace a change in strategy. And what we do in the workshop is we get them to the point where they're on board. By day 2, they're like, we see it clearly, we're on board. And there's a whole process we take them through without getting into granular detail. And then at that point in time, you got to spend some significant time designing it and working on it together. So if you download this document from our website in closing, my suggestion would be to carve out a couple of good half-day off-site meetings with your team to talk about what's not working, to talk about what it's costing you, and then to say, and what I'd like to do is I'd like to propose a new way of doing business that I think is working for several originators out there that are doing business at a very high level. And then roll a document like that out and walk through it and really understand the benefit of making the change. And it goes deeper than that. And Caleb, I'll toss it over to you now. I mean, would you add anything to that? Because I know that, like I said, I mean, you sent Kelly and Amanda and everybody to us and they went through our workshop, but you had already started to implement the PLP before that. So how did you go about the implementation of it?
I did exactly that. So, I mean, we did a couple of half-day events off-site, and I think if you really want to get to know your team and really get to know your practice, it's one of the best things that you could ever do, because it forces you to really walk through and think with clarity as a team, step by step. What is the client experiencing? What are we experiencing as a team? What is our referral partners experiencing? What is the outcome we're trying to achieve at each step? And then you get clarity in that end goal of, well, what we really want is a timely closing with no hiccups, no surprises, and creating that proselyte or that disciple or that raving fan, whatever you want to call that individual at the end, where each loan begets another loan, and it just has a compounding building effect. That process of stopping and going through step by step each transaction of the loan allowed us to clearly identify pain points as a team to go, okay, what is it that causes us not to get the file out the door in this step as timely as we want? Can we address it earlier and eliminate that choke point? Or is there just something we go, okay, then let's not do it here, let's do it sooner in the transaction, so that way if we can't cut the time invested down, at least it gets started the clock sooner to speed the transaction up, because the origination business is quickly moving to, very fast closings, minimal documentation required from the borrowers, things of that nature. So you've really got to have a system dialed in, because just shooting from the hip is going to disappear overnight.
So let's give them a quick example of something, because I just love the simplicity and the impact of a script that you have. So somewhere early on in the perfect loan process, I don't know what step it is for you, probably in the first 10 steps, there's an inquiry that you have with the client about their existing real estate agent situation that generates, as I recall, approximately, and I don't need to use the word approximately with you because you know your numbers so well to like a decimal point. How many clients did you refer out to real estate agents last year, or on average per month last year? Do you know that number?
On average, yeah, on average we're hitting between 3 to 5 outbound referrals per month to our partners. So I mean, we will typically refer outbound anywhere between 36 to 60 clients to our realtor partners, which obviously, I mean, if you ever want to know what's the easiest way to win a realtor partner, it's really simple. Send them an approved client that closes. Game over. You don't have to get any fancier than that. You just do that, and you won't have to worry about anything.
Okay,
but
so go ahead, Caleb, sir.
Yeah, the tee-up is really simple. So at this point in my practice, I've had the benefit of, we have closed a lot of clients. We've got a fairly large wake of folks in our past who we really focus on trying to deliver excellence and a tremendous experience to. So we get referred to our clients pretty early in the process. So they're oftentimes coming to us before they're even going to see a realtor partner. So it's not anything overly elegant. It's just a very simple inquiry of, do you have a realtor that you're already working with, or would you be open to having a professional assist you in making a wise decision in buying your next home? Well, if they don't have one, typically they're going to say, well, no, we'd love to, because at that point in our process, we've sat down, we've established trust, we've gone through a TCA to make sure that they are making an educated decision on their loan. We've shown them that, look, we're really here to help assist you. I want this to be the most pleasant mortgage experience you can ever possibly have, and I really want them to make a good decision. I mean, that's super, super important to me. That's one of the things I'm most passionate about, which is why I really enjoy Mortgage Coach. I think it's probably the best tool, if not the only tool, to really help that client make that type of decision. So that trust has been established. So the referral for an outbound status at that point is a very natural transition. It's not pitchy, it's not salesy. It's, look, you want to continue to work with professionals that are going to take great care of you. Here's who I would trust and recommend to make sure that they would take care of you just like they would my own family.
One of the things that I think is important to highlight there is that you're doing that after, kind of like in that moment of massive impact. So you've taken the time, and if you look at the process that Caleb executes, it's not all that different from mine and that of several other originators that I can think of that are really, really good at what they do, in the sense that he starts off, gets out of the starting blocks, with speed and efficiency and with value. So like, he's coming at them day one with teaching, educating. He gets them in front of him. He does business the right way by using the tools in the Mortgage Coach. He gets in front of them with the TCA. He breaks down for them the different options in a very educated way. And it's at that moment that he has cred. He has street cred with them, right? I mean, he has credibility as being an educated financial advisor. And then that becomes so much easier to then enter into just as a standard part of the process. And it's not like he does this on every 7th loan. Every single loan, that script is delivered. He makes it a part of kind of it's a repetitive thing every time. Do you have a real estate agent? Because I'd really like to make sure that you're working with someone who's extremely good at what they do, because it's important to me that you have a top-notch professional working with you, or whatever way you want to phrase it up. And it just becomes a numbers game. And especially when I would bet, Caleb, tell me about this, but I bet that there are some people that actually do have a realtor, but they're so impressed by you that they're actually more open to you suggesting somebody because you've built this credibility with them. Is that accurate?
That happens actually fairly frequently. So it's an opportunity for us to make sure that we are reciprocating to our partners that we do a lot of business with, and who are the best people in the business in our area to do business with anyway. So it's just a great opportunity to make sure they're placed with a top-notch professional who's going to help them in a very challenging market. Our market's just like anybody else's. It's limited inventory. It's highly competitive, and everybody's fighting for every deal. So you need to give your client every advantage they can to get their offer accepted and to have a successful closing.
One last thing, and I'll toss it over to you, Dave, because I'm sure you have a bunch of questions. I just want to comment on it because it's just been front and center for me lately, based upon a presentation that I'm in the process of writing and practicing for the Mastermind event in Las Vegas in June. I'm really playing with this word fear and how it has an impact in all of our lives. And when you look at the perfect loan process, so the first thing that I want everybody to think about is, like, as an originator, I would imagine that several times a day, from a place of fear, you interrupt and infiltrate your team's day. So you go to them, did we get the appraisal in yet? Hey, did you get that loan funded? Where are we at with that loan approval? You're pinging them with texts, with voicemails, with emails, you're walking into their office, etc. And when you really step back from that, you say, well, what's driving that interruptive behavior? It's one word: fear. I mean, if you weren't afraid and you totally trusted that everything was being handled, you'd surrender and you'd go do what you're supposed to be doing, and you wouldn't have this monkey mind bouncing around worried about, hey, did we get that covered? Okay, so you've all experienced that. Now think of it from the perspective of your team and your referral partners and your clients. So if realtors are calling in all the time and asking, hey, where are we at with this loan? Did we get it approved yet? Did you draw docs yet? Or clients are calling in checking for status all the time. Where are they coming from? Fear. Okay, so that's what's driving the call. Like, I'm afraid if I don't check in that something bad may be happening. That's what this process is about. It's about removing the fear. It's about proactively getting to somebody before they can even move into a place of fear. And when we have that happen, so think of it this way: if your team were consistently statusing you on your loan pipeline to where you felt completely safe and comfortable that you didn't have to worry anymore, you would no longer be in fear and you no longer interrupt them. You would trust and you'd surrender because you'd know they've got my back. Like, they're on it. Like, if they displayed that to you over and over and over again, you'd be able to let go and you'd be able to go back out in the field and find more business. Okay, and what inhibits most people's ability to do business successfully as an originator is they're distracted all of the time by what's going on with their current loans in process, because they don't have the confidence that what's happening on the other side of the door from their office is something that is something that they can feel safe with. So now think about that from a perspective of a realtor, and think about that from this perspective of a client. If you're creating an experience, which is what we're talking about here with the perfect loan process, that proactively statuses people on a consistent basis before they can ever think to move into fear, they're going to trust you, and they're going to surrender to you, and they're going to stop interrupting you. So your team's job gets infinitely easier because they're getting far less inbound phone calls that are people who are worried and panicked. And lastly, is you create kind of an addictive experience, meaning that when we as human beings trust somebody, which is not all that frequently, when we actually do trust somebody and surrender to them, okay, we want more of that, because there's not a lot of that going on in our life in most cases. Most of the time we're having to worry about so many things. We have tons of things on our mind. From a realtor's perspective, I can tell you, and I would imagine, and Caleb, you can certainly comment on this if you have anything to add. From a realtor's perspective, once they start working with a loan originator who's executing a system that is like the perfect loan process, it becomes a standard from which they don't really want to step down from. And every time that they have to work with a loan officer that isn't executing that, it's kind of a reminder of how much better you are than everybody else. Have you had any comments from realtors saying, hey, you know, like, I really appreciate your system? And how do you use that system to sell yourself to realtors?
All the time. So I mean, I look at it as creating a pane of disconnect. So I actually enjoy it when one of my core partners has to close with somebody else, because it inevitably always comes back around of, oh my gosh, that was so painful. I had to babysit the transaction. I wasn't getting status updates. I wasn't aware of what was going on. And it takes your partner off the freeway or on what they're focused on, because a realtor only gets compensated for really doing just a few very things. It's, you know, taking a new client out and showing them houses and negotiating an offer. The rest of it really is paperwork. So we really try to make sure our system is built in such a way to facilitate allowing them to do more of what they do best, taking the fear away of having to constantly babysit or check in. It's like, guys, you've caught the fish. You've handed us the fishing pole. Go out and get another one. We'll land the fish. We'll skin it. We'll fillet it. We'll serve it up on a silver platter, squeeze a little lemon on it, hand it back to you, and we'll go to closing. And by the way, we'll make sure that the client, I mean, what we're striving for every time is we get to closing, that client's going, thank you for having referred me to Caleb and his team. That was one of the best experiences I've had. So that's the outcome we're striving for in every interaction. The way we use that to leverage our business, and I've stepped away from this a little bit to my own chagrin, but it was pretty easy. You get to closing, and if you've done an excellent job of statusing a listing agent, the next natural progression is to say, hey, let's talk about how we can provide the same level of service to you and your clients on every transaction. Giving them that consistency is what allows scalability in real estate or mortgage practices of, all right, I know what to expect. I know how to set the expectation with my client. Everything goes according to plan. There's already enough variables in a real estate transaction that you can't control. So you might as well control as many of them as you can, so that way when you do have something that comes up, there's flexibility enough to handle it within the transaction without derailing the entire thing. Because we have the same issues everybody has. Short appraisals come in, or inspections aren't great, or the termite letters got issues that have to be addressed. So those are things you can't control on the front end, but you want to try to control as much of it as you can and set those expectations so that when it does come up, they're quickly, easily, and professionally addressed, and it moves forward. Because it's not how well you deliver on an easy deal. Everybody can close an easy loan. It's how you handle the problems and the issues and the challenges when they come up and the manner in which you address them that really sets you apart, and you have to have a system that will allow you to handle that when those do arise.
So, guys, let me break down a few things. Had a few questions come in. So, folks, we did put a link to Tim Braheem's perfect loan process in the GoToWebinar control panel. And remember, this is recorded, so you can, we showed you how to go find it. If you don't already subscribe to Tim's, on his website, if you don't go to his YouTube page and watch his videos, I just can't emphasize it enough. It's some of the best content and wisdom in the business. Check it out. So, hopefully everybody got the takeaway that it has to be documented. So Tim showed you how they document it. I'm a big fan of number 12, which is, the total cost analysis. And I know that fits in a couple different places in the perfect loan process. But obviously, hopefully everybody on this call, you've got some documentation around your perfect loan process. And clearly, you've already got one script. You've got some leadership on why you should have it, what it feels like, what it sounds like. Guys, let's do this. Caleb, I want to close out with you going through some total cost analysis and showing how you have that conversation with the borrower. But we can do that in the last 10, 15 minutes of the call. I do want to make sure that folks know what it sounds like for you to describe your perfect loan process to an agent. One, I don't know how often you bring agents into your office. I know a lot of your families and borrowers come into your office and they get your full experience. So I guess that's one quick question. What percentage of your agents do you get through your office experience?
All of them. So, I mean, we've really worked very hard to get our partners to come to the office. So we do a lunch-in. Instead of taking them out to lunch, we do a lunch-in. And Sandra, who's on my team as a partner, does an amazing job of putting together a really great experience for them. So, that does a couple of things. We're bringing them into an environment that we control implicitly, so we can make sure that they have an amazing experience. It's quiet, so you're not competing with whomever else may be wherever you go off-site. And they get to meet the team. So the biggest thing, if you're going to scale your practice, you're going to have partners with you that will help deliver on the commitments that you're making. You need your referral partners to be comfortable with all the team members and partners on your team. So I want them having that interaction, breaking bread, sharing that time together, and not just me being the point of contact all the time, making sure that realtor partner feels comfortable being involved with everybody on the team. So we try to get everybody in, and we go through a fairly routine rotation. We try to bring at least 2 of our partners in every month to have that breaking bread and belly-to-belly time.
Love that. So that's a takeaway for everybody. If you're not doing that, it's something to definitely put on the to-do list. I want to
Dave, let me comment on something that he just said there real quick too that I think is super important for everybody here. If you want your referral partners to let go of the notion of calling you for everything, status on files, etc., and going directly to your team, you've got to introduce them to your team in person. Because if you don't, they're not going to trust that those are competent individuals. If you make it a point to build the credibility of your team, as Caleb's doing, by bringing the realtor into the office, having people come into his office, introduce themselves, associate face with voice, with name, so it's not just a stale name on the backside of an email, they're going to all of a sudden start to go, oh, wow, like he or she's pretty bright, professional. Okay, I can trust them. Again, it goes back to fear. They're going to keep calling you if they're afraid that if they call somebody else, they're not going to get a competent answer. So a part of your job as a leader is to make sure that you're building the credibility of your team so those referral partners will then let go of calling you for everything and go directly to them.
Great point to make, Tim. I'm glad you did it. I want to kind of extend the conversation, Tim, and you and I had yesterday on that Skype interview. So, Tim and I had a conversation. It was about how to be valuable with realtors. The way you describe this, you talked about how as a mortgage coach you could help improve conversion. It wasn't whether it's in your office or not in your office. We've got a lot of great content around how to deliver an amazing experience with an agent. I would recommend, God, what was it? It was the video I did with Danny Harani. Here it is. How he uses his iPad at realtor meetings. So again, I'm not saying this would be a substitute to getting someone in your office, meeting your team, because I don't think anything can come close to comparing with that kind of experience. But I would recommend this video is just a great way to have an educational experience that differentiates with an agent. I will put a link to that in the recording of this event and the control panel. But Caleb, let's kind of transition. I mean, you are a mortgage coach. That is part of your experience. How do you, at least, for all the mortgage coaches on this call, how do you describe that part of the conversation within your agent conversation? If you could just give us a feel for that and some scripting around that, I think it would be helpful to everybody.
Yeah, so Dave, when you refer a client to us, what I'm going to make sure we do is make sure that client saying thank you and pumping your hand at closing for having referred them to us. One of the ways we're going to help ensure that that happens, besides just meeting the basics of helping them close on time with exactly what they were promised with no surprises, is we're going to really help them go deep with an educated decision on their mortgage. So we have a tool that we use, and you can think of it as a spreadsheet, but it's much more in depth than that. That's going to assist your client in really making an educated decision on structuring their loan in such a way to help them really tie it in to their overall long-term goals. I'm going to draw on my background as a former accountant, and I'm the geek who reads the Wall Street Journal for fun to make sure that your clients really make a smart decision and not going so deep that they get overwhelmed. We're going to help them go through and really make an intelligent decision on tying that into their overall financial picture. What I find over the years is that clients tend to look at their mortgage with blinders on, and so they get very focused on simply the payment level, because that's how most people tend to budget is, I can afford X amount of my mortgage, therefore they'll go and spend 10, 20, 30% down on their loan, yet they may be carrying credit cards, other debts that are having debt levels at 5, 10, 18%. So they'll prepay a mortgage, yet they've still got money going out the door. And the benefit for long-term wealth accumulation is to make the hole in the bottom of the bucket where your money goes in as small as possible. So we're going to make sure your clients make that hole as small as possible and really make a wise decision by helping them see all options and tying it in to their overall balance sheet.
Powerful scripting. Obviously, you've said that before. Let's do this, because I know you sent over a couple total cost analysis strategies. I do think, while we have 3 of them, and I don't know if we'll have time to go through all 3 of them, I know the one where we're creating, kind of cost of waiting, why buy now might be a good one. Which one would you like to walk the mortgage coach community through? Which strategy of the 3 that you sent over to me?
I think that's a good one, because this is one that we do a lot of in our. Yeah, that's one I have come up a lot. So what we have a lot of in my market is we have clients that are retiring to our area or downsizing out of a larger home. They're coming in, and so they go, okay, I've got X amount of dollars that I would put down on this new property. And, these are fairly well qualified individuals 9 out of 10 times. So traditionally, they're going to come in and go, okay, we're going to drop this amount of money down. That one's the different payment levels. So go back 1 tab for me, Dave. I think the other one you had the different.
This one right here, the one with 90%?
Yeah. So
yeah, walk us through this one.
So on a client would come in, typically they come in and go, okay, we're going to put 20% down. So the conversation would quickly move to, well, let's just talk about what that would look like, and does that make sense for you? So you came to me wanting to say, hey, I'm going to put $70,000 down. Well, that's where we would move into, maybe we consider putting less cash down than what you've actually had in mind. Let's look at the total break even on that over the entire life of the loan. So that's one of the things I love about the TTA. In this simple example right here, if we look over the entire 30-year window, the client's not going to earn back that additional $35,000 they would have put down in total interest expense savings. So if we just take the lender paid MI option, you're only going to earn back a difference of about 30 grand for having put $35,000 down. So if we look at it just like we would any other investment, because that's what your mortgage is, you're taking that cash, you're making an investment to earn a rate of return over the life of the loan. If you're not going to earn that back, why would you bother? Because if I came to you and said, Dave, give me $35,000 today, and then over that entire 30-year window, I'll give you back $30,000, you probably wouldn't be very happy or thrilled about that from a return on investment standpoint. That's exactly what you're doing with this loan. So as you're moving into your retirement years here, getting ready to tee up for slowing down and not bringing in as much income, maybe it's a better idea to look at taking those monies, reallocating them into some type of outside investment vehicle, nothing too terribly crazy or exotic, but something that would give you boring, safe rates of return, because in this ultra low interest rate environment that we're in, you're not going to earn back your overall investment on the life of the loan. So you may want to give serious consideration to putting the money to work outside the home at a better rate of return, because a lot of clients are far more comfortable carrying a mortgage through retirement than they have been in years past.
Got it.
So in this example, we would just walk them through, here's what the money down saves over the entire life of the loan.
How would you walk them through, by the way? Do you use the Mortgage Coach Live feature very often?
I do that a lot. So if it's not a face-to-face, we'll set up a consultation call and go through it live over the internet. So I would link with them just like we're doing here. So it would be, here's what the down payment that you asked for looks like. Here's the alternatives with less money down in terms of what that would look like. We look at the total savings over the entire life of the loan there, Dave. You're seeing that that investment up front isn't yielding you enough to break even on over the entire 30 years there. So let's talk about what we could maybe look at.
Hey, Caleb, time out. So for everybody who noticed your screen move or the highlights happen while Caleb was doing that, he's using the live feature. So I'm here in Portland, Oregon. You know, Caleb is in South Carolina, and boom, things are just very educational. Anyways, keep rolling. This is a great example, but I just wanted to make sure folks realize that you were the one making things bounce and move.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not using this as a tool, I literally have had clients go, this is amazing, we want to work with you, because you have to understand when you compare yourself to other originators in the industry, oftentimes what they're doing is they're sending 2 or 3 different, fee worksheets or things of that nature, which clients only do, if at best, usually 3 to 10 loans over their entire life. And with all the numbers changing and the layout, when we rolled from a HUD to a CD and from a GFE to an LE, they aren't going to really know what they're looking at if you just send them, here's 3 side-by-side LEs. Tell me which option you like to do. This allows them to have a much better experience, and it helps them feel like they're making a smart decision, because they are. You're giving them the information in an easily discernible manner that allows them to feel confident that, okay, I made this decision, and this is the best loan for me, and here's the why, and being able to explain it to their spouse, their financial planner, whomever, when they get asked, well, why'd you do that? Oh, well, here's the why. If I was going to put down the additional $35,000, it was only going to net me approximately the $22,000 in interest expense savings. I talked to my financial advisor at XYZ company, and he said if we put the 35 grand to work, we should easily be able to earn a 5 or 6% rate of return over the next umpteen years, in which case my overall net worth was greater at the end of that time frame. So it's not hard. It's not selling. It's just educating and helping them understand what they're looking at. And that's something that I'm really personally passionate about. That's why I try to meet with all our clients in person. That can be hard sometimes, but I think it's our ability to make an impactful difference in people's lives, even in such a small way.
Yeah, no, I love it. Obvious value. Which one of these might be like a cost of waiting, where you're showing someone the cost of waiting? Are any of 3 of these something that would do that?
The rent versus own would be one that I'll walk a first-time buyer through, because, the client always was going to ask, why would I want to buy versus just continuing to rent? Rent enables me to have greater flexibility and to do different things. And I love the rent versus own, because it really helps drive it home of, I always love the whole net worth after whatever period of time. So statistically, a first-time buyer is going to own their first house about 7.2 years. Nothing's more fun than going, you've rented for 10 years, and congratulations, you've got a big goose egg to show at the end of that time frame for the rent that you spent. Let's talk about why owning a home is so powerful, both from a tax deductibility standpoint, building equity, the appreciation in the home, and you really need to help them understand what those words mean, because I think we as an industry can sometimes get carried away with throwing around acronyms, and while they may be commonplace to us, helping that client really understand, what does this mean? And so, always going equity, it just simply means profit in the home. It's money you're going to make. And it's really, I really get a kick out of seeing those light bulbs click on where people go, that's what that is, and this is why I want to do it. And I think the presentation materials just really help a client break that down in such a great, discernible way to take it in, and they leave empowered knowing that they made a good decision.
Love it. What percentage of the time are you providing the first-time home buyer with the rent versus own analysis?
Probably a little over 50% of the time, because some of them, a lot of clients are coming out of a rent-free scenario. I mean, there is a fairly high percentage of clients that are in that younger generation that are still living at home with mom or dad. So you have to help them understand, why should I buy versus living for free? And really that's where showing them the benefit of building that equity over time, putting their savings to work. And it still boggles my mind how many of them do come in thinking they really do have to have a 20% down payment. So helping them understand the options, how they play out on lower down payment options, especially over a more limited holding period of 5, 7, 10 years, it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's just fun to help clients make wise decisions from a place of educated information being easily discernible. And then they can go home, they talk to their parents, and what's really neat is they'll go home, they'll take a TCA home to their mom and dad, and the next thing I know, I'm getting a call from mom and dad going, hey, we'd like to talk to you about our mortgage. So it's just having the integrity across the board to always do the right thing for your client. And if you'll always do the right thing for your client, for your team, your referral partners, I would hold that you couldn't help but be successful. It may not happen overnight, but it will build and it will grow on itself.
I love it. I love it. Now, what about your agents? Are they aware that you have this thing called a rep versus own analysis? And is it something that when they refer clients to you, when appropriate, they'll drive that? How familiar are your agents with this?
They're familiar with it to the extent that they feel comfortable with it. Most of the time, the way that referral goes is, look, just call Caleb. When you get done, I promise you're going to be happy. So please just call him. And so then it's my job to deliver on that promise of we're really going to help you make a wise decision here. Whether you choose to use me or another mortgage professional is up to you as a client, but I want to make sure that you really made an informed decision one way or the other. And if you come at it from that place, you'll have a very high pull-through. Clients really do want to work with somebody that they trust that does have their best interests at heart. And that you don't usually have too many people that go, well, so-and-so down the street is going to be $200 cheaper than you. I think I'm going to go with them. I mean, I get those from time to time. It's like, okay, I understand. You have to make what you feel is the best decision. But by and large, you don't have as much of that show up.
I love it. I love it. So, hey, guys, we're at the 8-minute mark. We've got 8 minutes. I want to do a little rapid fire scripts. And, we've talked a lot about having a great, perfect loan process, great borrower conversation, doing that in a way that's a competitive advantage with agents. We've gone through a couple total cost analysis experiences. At the end of the day, if you can, maximize that conversion, but do it in a way that creates that client for life, that's what it's all about. And Tim, I don't know how long you need for this, but I would love to have you take a swipe at it. And then Caleb, if you have edits to it, what are your edits? But you've got some scripting around, taking the loan, but setting up the next deal. Is that something you could net out quickly, Tim, in a script on how to, at the point of sale with the first loan, be setting up the second loan as a mortgage coach? Is that something you could do relatively quickly, Tim?
Yeah, of course.
Knock it out.
I sure hope so. I did it a lot of times. So here's my script. And I'm going to use Caleb to role play with him. I'm just going to say, Caleb, one of the things that I want you to understand is that if I'm doing my job correctly, my job really just begins when your first loan closes with me. Because from there, it is my job to assist you in managing the largest indebtedness that you'll ever take on in your life. Most people that do what I do for a living just provide the debt, get paid a check, and then walk away, and you never hear from them again. And I want you to know that that's not the type of relationship that I'm interested in having with you or with any of my clients. I'm going to continue to monitor the market as things evolve in an effort to find cheaper money for you. And the way that that'll look is this, is if we have a dip in interest rates from the current levels that we're at, even if it's only 0.5%, what I do is I refinance all of my clients that have loan amounts of $250,000 or higher at no points, no fees. And what I mean by that is I simply take the money that's paid to me by the bank for doing your loan, and I allocate that money through the closing company, in my case Escrow, to pay your closing costs. Whatever's left over is commissions for me. And it's a part of the service and process that I like to provide because at the end of the day, you should always have the cheapest money available when working with a lending professional if they're proactively managing your indebtedness for you, which is the service that I provide. So when you hear from me in the future and I say that it's Tim and it's time, you're going to know what that means. We're not going to mess around. We're going to get it done really quickly because sometimes these windows of opportunity are open for just a very short period of time. So we'll have to jump on it, but know that my team is well equipped to do just that.
Boom. And by the way, did folks get a total cost analysis to help them net out the value and difference?
Of course. I mean, that would be, okay, so just really, really simply, Dave, here's what I would do. As column 1, I would say current loan. Column 2, new loan. That's it, just 2 options.
Boom.
And it would just show them. And then what I would do, but this is kind of a key thing, is I would always show them that if we did the, which we called it a same payment refinance, if we do this new loan and save you $78 for free and reallocate that $78 to the principal, you're going to pay the loan off in 4 years and 3 months less and save yourself $17,348 or whatever the number is. And that would be the number I'd really highlight, because the mistake would be to say, I'm going to rewrite your loan for free and save you $73 a month. Some people may say, you know what, it's a lot of work. I don't really want to deal with that. Highlight the big number, that over the life of the loan, we're saving you 17 grand for free. And that's where it would be, to be candid with you, I wouldn't even call the people and ask them if they wanted to refi. That deal was already agreed upon 7 months ago when I did their previous loan, because I used that script. So it's like it's an implied agreement that's already taken place. When rates drop, I just simply call them and go, it's Tim, it's time. You're going to have a new payment starting on July 1st. It's going to take us 30 days. You're already approved. Here's a list, of the updated documentation we need from you. And people just roll over and say, okay, great, let's do this. Especially if you highlight the big number with the TCA.
Well, whether we're in a market where rates are going up, rates are going down, that script is a great way to demonstrate that I have your best interest in mind. You delivered the total cost analysis at the point of sale. Best practice is you do this annually for clients, whether or not it's time to refinance or not. And then Caleb, do you have any edits to that? Anything that you do differently when it comes to setting expectations? Call it that mortgage under management relationship at the point of sale.
No, so when rates drop, we go through the database, do the exact same thing, and we would email, and then I actually would also FedEx it to them to ensure that they got it with the, hey, this is what it's going to look like. It's exactly that. Here's what we can do with the savings. If we prepay the loan, on average, it's going to save you 6.5 to 7.5 years on your mortgage. And the only edit to that is at loan size for us here in South Carolina is usually a little bit below that threshold. So the rates got to move a little bit more, but the concept plays across the entire board.
So folks, that's a metric that a lot of loan officers don't follow. Most don't know what their conversion rate is, and almost nobody knows what their past customer pull-through rate is. If you've got 100 customers that you've done a loan for, 20% of them are doing a loan every year, and you're not getting it. Most loan officers have less than a 5% past customer pull-through rate, and Tim and I could do a whole nother hour on that. But Tim was the master of that. So I think we pulled some incredible scripts out of today's call. Hey Tim, you're incredible, brother, and I'm a big fan of everything you do and all the value you bring, or I wouldn't bring you into calls like this. But if anybody wants to connect with you after this call, if you could, one, describe a little bit about the services that you provide and the best way to connect with you, I would just love to give that gift to the community here.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. And I'm gonna let Caleb actually speak to Leadership 360 in a second, just because I feel like it's always nicer to hear from somebody who's in it rather than somebody who has a vested interest in promoting it. So rather than a shameless promotion, I'll just describe what we do and then let Caleb speak to it. So we have 2 programs. We have the Leadership 360 program, which we take 9 new people every year. We currently have 4 spots open for this year's group. 5 are filled. It's an application process and an interview process. It's a hell of a program. It's a full year with 3 retreats, private coaching, and I'm really, really proud of what we do and the success that people have from it. Once you've graduated from that program, you can move into the master's program, which is the program Caleb's in, and that's a group that's currently comprised of 22 originators, and they meet twice a year, and that's a program that I think that we're really starting to evolve into just a spectacular experience for those that are involved in it. The simplest way, and I'll toss it to Caleb, is for you to just email me. Just make it real easy. If you're interested in applying for Leadership 360 or our private coaching, because we do private coaching as well, just Braheem, TBRAHEEM @gmail. I'll end up introducing you to Scott Bertone, who's a coach on our faculty, and then we'll kind of enter you into the process from there. But maybe Caleb could speak for a moment as to what his experience has been, because you've been through both the Leadership 360 program and now you've been in the master's program for 2 years.
Yeah, I can validate everything you said, and really from a place of authenticity. The L360 core, we all talk about taking time to work on our business instead of in our business, and the reality is, if you're out slinging loans, that probably rarely happens. So the core process was really impactful because you are forced to take a week to slow down and really focus on what is it I'm trying to accomplish. And that was really a question that I had never really answered that clearly for myself. And just the power of what exactly am I doing? My business plan up to that point was probably been comprised of just more, just hustle and try to do bigger, better, faster, stronger type of thing. The master's program, I look at that as a way of you're getting 26 plus coaches, and you want to talk about shortening a learning curve. You're truly with the best of the best in that group, and odds are somebody's tried it, failed at it, so you can learn from the mistakes that they've already made without having to go through the pain and the cost. And then you can also get direct feedback from people who are truly doing loans and are in the trenches, actually doing what you do for a living, and can give you candid, real live data feedback of, yeah, I tried that, that didn't work, maybe this is what you want to look at, or hey, that's a really great idea, have you thought about maybe running with it this way, or I think I want to take that. I mean, that has been one of the best return on investments of anything I've done for my personal practice, besides hiring a team and really investing and training in them, and then really getting educated with the tools like Mortgage Coach. I mean, I'm a huge fan of it. Both the products on the call today are things that if you're serious about your career and want to truly be a professional set apart, they're worth every monetary investment you can make. They would turn a huge multiple on it.
Love it, gentlemen. This has been a fantastic call, tons of value. Can't recommend Tim Braheem's program enough. We've given you a link to the website. I think just filling out Tim's application, Tim is so intentional about everything that he does. You're going to get some personal development value just filling out his application. It's good stuff. Get you to think about things in deeper ways. If you could let us know what you thought of today's call, if we surpassed your expectations with value, let us know. If we gave you some good takeaways, let us know. If you're a guest and you want to schedule a demo to learn more about Mortgage Coach, if you're just visiting this call as a guest, click the last option. So, Tim, we got lots of questions. I would love to have you run a Tuesday call for me sometime soon. Just come in and give me a day off. I don't know if you'd be up for that.
Sure, no problem.
But man, you are awesome, bro. You did a great job of bringing out the genius of Caleb. And Caleb, I mentioned before the call, but we're more than just about selling software. We're all about making change with how people get into debt, mortgage debt in America, and the amount of families that get a total cost analysis. You just do an immense job of our mission, which is to really help people make better decisions. So grateful for that, and thank you for the time to prepare for today's call and to be on today's call.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
All right. Take care, gentlemen. Have a fantastic week. And everybody in the Mortgage Coach community, hopefully you are engaging in more than just this educational experience. You can go to our website. You can go to our calendar. We've got training happening every single day of the week. So check out what's the next training. Every Wednesday we teach you how to use your mobile device in a more strategic way. And then, of course, we're seeing more and more people consume our training via our YouTube channel. So if you don't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel so you get updated when a new video hits. And keep an eye on these real-world scripts. Some of the best education I feel like I've created. And not because it's me, it's just because I've interviewed amazing people for, most of them are less than 15 minutes. I'm trying to target 10-minute content, and there's just some great ideas and great concepts in there. So take care, everybody. This call is a wrap. Bye now.
Okay, bye-bye.